guys. Happy Thursday. Towards the end of the week, I'm still feeling a lot of the energies that are coming through. Recording this podcast a little bit later than I expected to, but super excited to be here. Super excited to deliver another episode, part of the series of Shakti Soul Sessions in my Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast. And this morning, I was talking a lot about the divine feminine. I think there's so many different avenues, different ways, like different reflections on just the energies post-elections. And for me, what I'm really trying to glean and take away from is this idea of the divine feminine, the sacred feminine, and how so many people are saying that it is a time for the feminine to rise. Even before the elections, I think we've been seeing this resurgence of the feminine, particularly in 2020 when COVID happened. I think, it was funny, I was talking about it with my therapist, how everyone just busted out into this whole divine feminine momentum. And it's been long standing way before then. And I think it's grown into massive popularity, especially during COVID. There was nothing to do. We were stuck at homes. We were on our phones, social media, wellness, all of that, really understanding our demons. And if you think about it, some people are excited about what's going on. Some people are really pissed. Some people are in a rage. Some people are grieving. Whatever mirrors are coming up for you, I think it's definitely an opportunity for a time to really think about what is the world that you want to create for yourself. What is the type of leadership that you want to be or, have in this world? And this episode is really just dovetailing a continuation of the conversation that I started yesterday. And what I really want to do is just dive into this quality or certain qualities of being feminine and thinking about the feminine force, thinking about the feminine power. And I was on this journey, I too was influenced by a lot of the mainstream media that was going on, especially with the Divine Feminine 2020. And that really, I was always on the spiritual path, but I never really understood the Divine Feminine path. And I understood myself through the lens of a man, the lens of, my relationship to my father, the lens of a relationship to romantic partners, which are all just very male. And it wasn't until I would say the last couple of years that I've really just unfolded into my own journey of my own relationship to the feminine. Granted, I want to say it probably started when I had my very first therapist back in 2010. And when I think about it in retrospect, in a way I was searching for a hole to fill the mother. And the mother is just such a complicated topic. There's so much depth to it. There's the parental mother, there's that cosmic mother, that Mother Earth. And for me, I was just really trying to fill that void of that motherly role for someone to nurture me, to take care of me, to nourish me, to love me unconditionally. And that's why I felt so comfortable with therapists who were pretty much motherly figures, caretakers, even mentors, right? And I think I've sort of shifted into this new era where I don't need someone to mother me. I don't need someone to father me. And that's usually where a lot of the trauma stems from, of looking at our relationships and seeing, okay, how am I picking and selecting and deciding the relationships that I want to have in my life? Am I picking from the lens of my inner maiden or my inner knight, right? If you identify with being a male, and really thinking about, okay, am I trying to fill a gap? Am I trying to fill a gap from this wound that I have? And now I find myself in a place because of, myself doing the inner work, that I'm starting to choose mentors that I can stand next to, right? That don't need a baby me, that don't need to mother me, or where I can stand shoulder to shoulder. And it's not necessarily someone that I can just learn from, but I can teach them things as well. So it becomes more of this reciprocal type of relationship. And that's something that I never, ever looked for before. And that just shows you another way of understanding and learning where can you actually see where you are on your healing journey. And And when I think about the last couple of years, looking at my relationship with the feminine, looking at it from a spiritual perspective, because of course you can do the mental jungle gym and talk about it in therapy. And I think for me, this is just my opinion. I mean, everything I say on here is my opinion. And I think about it from that perspective of really looking at it from that mental model of working with, a Freudian therapist. And it's okay, I understand that. But then my spirituality wanted to go even deeper. And that's when I dove into Tantra yoga and really understanding the goddesses and how working with mantras and yantras can actually, and yagnas, and invoke certain aspects of them within you. And you develop this higher awareness. You develop this longing, and you're open to subtle aspects of yourself. And I've been leading this sadhana, and this is day 38, right? We only have 2 more days left. It's amazing. And the women that show up are amazing, and the ones that show up consistently, it's just, you really start to feel when you have a consistent practice in your life, just the many boons that you get from it. And I was talking to one of my best friends, and she said, whenever you do these practices, no matter, even if you don't expect anything, there's always these siddhis that you get, these boons that you get. And I told her that I don't know what it is, but there is this aspect of myself where I can read people's energy. I am very open. I am so open. I can sense people's energy. I feel contractions sometimes. And sometimes I used to think this was normal when I was little. And I would walk into a room and all of a sudden I would just, no one would say anything, but I could sense that. It's almost like when you sense, oh my gosh, I'm like, now I feel like I'm talking crazy. When you can sense a spirit, when you can sense energy in the room, you walk in the room, you notice when there's tension, you walk out of the room, or like when someone's around you and you feel so light and you feel excited and you feel energized, that's a different energy versus someone who's just, like a vampire, they're toxic and you just feel like shit. You're like, oh my gosh. And so I've noticed with myself and it wasn't even something that I was conscious of, just how open I am. And that's what happens when we practice Kundalini yoga for a concentrated period of time, or when you have it as a daily practice, is that it really connects to those subtle energies. I think of different yoga practices as, maybe you look at it as a very physical form, but then all of a sudden when you work with the energetic system, and in Kundalini yoga, we understand the system of the 10 different bodies. You start to open yourself up to the subtle energies and the subtle language of what it feels like when you are communicating and feeling things that aren't of the physical eye. And yesterday I had a meeting and I was actually pretty nervous about it. Usually I'm not pretty nervous about meetings, but I just had this feeling that I didn't want to do it. And when I was on the meeting, I felt this rush of energy of someone enveloping me. And before I used to think, okay, maybe it's like a trauma from being around someone who's just really dominant and, toxic masculine and all of those things. And I was talking to my girlfriend and, she's actually an energy healer, reader, all of that stuff. She's pretty advanced. And she said, no, it's just now you're able to read the energy of other people when you start to notice an imbalance in other people. And I kid you not, when I am on a call with someone, especially like a woman, I can sense when her energies are imbalanced and when she's too in her masculine without her even saying whether or not she is considered wanting to dive in deeper into her feminine. 100%, I can call it, I can tell it, I feel it. And I want you to recognize that is one of the gifts of being feminine, right? And that's something that we don't often talk about. It's something that's not often celebrated. And so it's no wonder that when women come to me or they want to work with me one-on-one session, or when they're in my field and then they're in my ether, it's this idea of looking to connect to their ability to learn how to self-trust, looking to connect back to their body, looking to connect back to their intuition, looking to overcome self-doubt. But they're always there's just this inclination to often second guess yourself because we've grown up in a society where we've totally given away our power to other people, and it almost becomes this codependent type of dynamic where if that person's okay, then it means you're okay. right? When really all we have to do is just tune into our body and listen to our gut and connect to our womb. That's why specifically in my practice today, I just wanted us to ground. So I invited the group to put their hand on their heart, put their hand on their womb, to really ground you. And everyone has a womb chakra. It's known as the sacral chakra, the Svadhisthana chakra. It's the second one. And so it's just this idea of learning that everybody can co-create. But particularly, as I go back to this topic of divine feminine, that is actually your gift. That is your innate gift, to be intuitive, to see things that aren't explainable without data. And sometimes I think I'm crazy. And I thought, oh my gosh, when I had that feeling of just contraction, being in that meeting and feeling that energy, reading that energy, feeling consumed by that energy, I had to do an energetic practice afterwards just to release it. But it's sometimes so easy to even second guess yourself and say, is this legit? Is this legit? And in a world where we have the witch wound, where we're taught that if we are an outlier, if we don't follow the paradigm or, this matrix, that we're going to be ostracized. And some of us are, right? People are like, oh my God, you're weird. I don't understand what you're saying, And so that's when we learn to disconnect from our truth. That's when we learn to disconnect from our bodies. That's when we learn to connect more with our mind. And I know for myself as Gemini Cancerian that I have an overactive, overstimulated mind. I really do. And I need to learn to connect more. And, the mind wants to create division. The mind is constantly trying to compartmentalize things, make sense of things, process things. But the body has a completely different language that requires you to slow down and stop thinking, right? And oftentimes when we're meditating, we often think about like our monkey mind, our monkey chatter, and it's about quieting the mind so we can truly listen to the voice of the soul, the voice of your intuition, the voice of your womb, the voice of your heart. And so in a world that truly rewards and validates data, that rewards this idea of hustling, that rewards this, and not to say that hustling is bad, right? We all have to take aligned action, but to the extent of burnout, you don't have to do that. You don't have to subscribe to that agenda. And so I want you to really think about today just those innate gifts that you were born with. And this message doesn't have to be for only feminine, because a lot of us have feminine energies within us, right? A lot of men are now having circles to talk about their feelings. Like, that is the feminine way. It's connecting to your heart. It's connecting to the light of love. And when you come from that place, that's when you have heart-centered leadership. That's when you start to have empathy. I've been doing my research. I've been talking to different people and, of all different parties, of all different faiths, and just really trying to understand. Because the truth is, when we come from a place of thinking that we know things, in actuality, we really do not know. And so how can you humble yourself? How can you stay open to other different opinions? And how can you open and expand your mind so that there is no duality at all? And so as you start thinking about, okay, how do I bring the feminine into this world? Or how do I bring more of my feminine energies? How do I activate it? How do I amplify it? Just start thinking on the subtle realms of just connecting deeply to your body. That can just be the first step, right? When you wake up in the morning, put your hands on your heart, right? Or even ask yourself, if you're frustrated about something, what are you feeling? It's about allowing yourself to feel, but not, feeling is actually the language before words. Your body's telling you something, but then you're processing it in your mind, and then you're speaking what that is. And so how can you go back to the basics of truly understanding what is the language of your body first? And that will allow you to develop this muscle of connecting to your intuition. That will allow you to develop this muscle of connecting to your self-trust. And so I really invite you to tune into, how does your intuition feel to you? It's this deep inner knowing. And before you ask anybody else about what decision you should make, what you should do, having their context, having their perspective, just learning to turn inwards and go back to you. And so it was just such a good reminder yesterday to have that experience of, oh my gosh, I do forget that is a feminine trait. It is a very special trait. It is an innate gift to tap into our intuition, to tap into those realms that we can't necessarily see with the physical eye. And that's when you learn to develop and strengthen your faith muscle. Because when we atrophy the heart, the mind gets stronger. The mind wants to make sense of everything. And the mind serves its place, right? There's a time and place, but I think now we're really called to go deeper in the heart, whether we're trying to cross divisions, whether we're trying to understand and have empathy for another person, or whether we're trying to understand ourselves in a deeper way. Because when you work on yourself, that allows you to work on being able to have a bridge to understanding someone else. And so I really encourage you to think today of, how can I tap into my intuitive gifts? How can I tap into more of that feminine aspect of myself, knowing that we all have that type of energy? How can I tap into more of my heart and my emotions for today? And if it's something that you haven't done before and you're really interested in doing it, I love to support you. I have one-on-one sessions, coaching containers. 3 spots are open, 4 months. And this is where we really get to dive deep. And it's just part of the process, right? Because I've been really called to go back to my roots, to go back to relationships. And what you come to find is, even though we're seeking relationships, loving relationships, healthy relationships, romantic relationships, ultimately at the core and on the journey of that is learning to love ourselves. And when you learn to love yourself, it requires this aspect of you to cross your own divides, to allow yourself to love yourself in a holistic way. And we do that through uniting our own polarities, uniting our dark shadows with our light. And so I would love to support you. I'll leave a call link in the show notes, but it's been a beautiful journey. Thank you for coming along with me, and I will talk to you tomorrow. All right, it's not Nam.